Gilmore.
I've been asking the Taoiseach about the state of his knowledge of what was happening in the banking system, various malpractices and crony practices that had been going on, which led to the problems we have in banking and the economy. And in response, he has been telling me that he hadn't heard of any of it and he didn't know of any of it when he was Minister for Finance. Now, as a result of Dáil questions which have been tabled by Deputy Joan Burton and Freedom of Information material which was obtained by the Irish Times and which was published in an article on Monday, we have some idea, Taoiseach, of the state of your thinking about these matters while you were Minister for Finance. In 2007, you set up an advisory forum on financial regulation, financial legislation, and that was a forum which was to draft the heads of a bill to modernise financial regulation. Now, there were two things of interest in respect of that committee, which was quite an active committee. It met 7 times between 2007 and 2008. There were two things of interest about that committee. The first is that you brought in people from the banking and the financial institutions to become part of that committee to draft the legislation. And secondly, you gave them a brief to prepare what was called cross-sectoral principles-led regulation of the financial sector, which is the official way of expressing light touch regulation. Now, as it turns out, the government obviously changed its mind in relation to that kind of legislation and to that way for preparing the legislation, because the committee was wound up quietly in 2009 and the legislation that it was preparing has obviously disappeared. I want to ask you 2 questions, Taoiseach. First of all, do you accept now, given all that we now know about what was going on in the financial institutions and their malpractice and so on, that you made a mistake to bring in the bankers to write their own legislation? And secondly, that you made a mistake to give them a brief to prepare light touch regulation, given what we now know about the consequences of light touch regulation in banking and the financial services sector?
No supplementary, Deputy Gilmore.
Taoiseach, you would have us believe that you had nothing to do with the past.
You were the minister.
You are the past, and you certainly are the past as far as this is concerned, because you were the minister. You were the Minister for Finance. You brought in bankers to draft legislation on banking, to write their own rules. That's what you did. That's what that committee was about. You gave them a brief. You now say that it's, this was. Light touch regulation was something of the past. You gave them a brief to prepare light touch regulation. And the problem is, you say you heard nothing, you saw nothing, you're going to admit nothing, you've learned nothing, and you certainly have changed nothing, because in another story that we heard over the last couple of days, something that was highlighted on the RTE News at 1 on Monday, Irish Nationwide have hired forensic accountants to unearth and pursue the malpractices that were occurring in Irish Nationwide. Who are the forensic accountants that they hire? The very firm who were the auditors to Anglo-Irish Bank. The people who couldn't see the loans that Sean Fitzpatrick was transferring between Anglo-Irish and Nationwide. And these are the people. What's going to happen here, Taoiseach, when they come to forensically examine the loans that were transferred by Sean Fitzpatrick from Anglo-Irish to Irish Nationwide, and when they come to forensically examine what role did the auditors play in that process? There's a clear conflict of interest. Was the appointment of these people, was that approved? I mean, the difficulty here, Taoiseach, is that because of your approach, where you heard nothing, saw nothing, you haven't learned anything, nothing has been changed, we're back to the same old, where the people in the inside track and the golden circle are still being reappointed to examine themselves.